Okay. Well, welcome to the meeting, everyone. Good morning. This is the Provider Support Subcommittee, and we do have interpretation services today. I want to mention that there is a slide for that. So if you hit the globe at the bottom, the English thing, then follow the instructions there, then that'll help with the interpretation services. Just remember, keep your answers short, concise, so that we can stay on time. If you could enter your name in the chat, your location, your role, like are you a center provider? Are you a family home provider? Are you DCYF? And then also just one thing in the new year that you're looking forward to accomplishing or trying out or starting or whatever. And then we'll get going. Go ahead and let's take a minute in the chat to introduce ourselves. Hopefully everybody got the email. Remember that there's an email that goes out prior to this meeting, that it contains the meeting minutes from the last meeting. This time it contained the meeting minutes from our last provider supports meeting, which was October. And then it also included the minutes from our joint meeting with ELAC from December. There was a lot in there. So if you're not getting those emails, let community engagement know in the chat that you would like your email to be added. Some of the things that were in the meeting minutes, we talked about the post-monitoring survey. We talked about first-time forgiveness going away because it wasn't something that providers could appeal. I believe at some point we'll have them back to talk about that. We talked about the family home capacity waiver. That was also part of the agency updates, which was in the email also. And Jessica just put the meeting minutes in the chat, so you can click on that and take a minute to look it over. We'll just pause there. I do want to mention that I did see in the meeting minutes that from October that, we talked about the the family home capacity waiver. We had a really robust discussion about that in October. There was an update about that. There was a rule update in the email that went out. So I would encourage you to look for that in the email as well.
Julie, I just wanted to pop in, and I know that people have been joining as we've been talking. So friendly reminder for everyone to please select a language channel, even if you will not be needing interpretation services. Click the globe and select English. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Erin. Some of the agency updates included information about the Child Care Complex Needs Fund and that being open now. Lots of information in there about that. There was information about early achievers, the timeline, and level finalization. The family surveys have gotten easier. The reports were redesigned. There's a self check-in tool. There's a lot of information in there. Also, there was an update about the access and living wage update. There was information on the decision packages that DCYF has. And the licensing complaint unit, which is not funded, but I think that's something that we have talked about before, and I'd love to hear more about that at some point. And then also in the meeting minutes and in the agency update, there was information about aligning the payment processes with private pay, what that would mean and how that would work. Not sure if that's funded, but lots of information in there. So if you're just joining, make sure that you're changing your little globe icon for the interpretation services. Please add your name to the chat with your location, and you can certainly add your word that we did the icebreaker of what are you looking forward to trying or doing in the new year. All right. Can we display the agency updates and just run that down real quick? Change my view so I can see that better. Okay. All right. So the complex needs is open. Information about how the funds can be used, how much funding can be requested. Like I said, if you didn't get the email, drop your email in the chat and request this email because there was a lot of information in there. Okay, let's keep scrolling. All right, so the information about the early achiever update, timeline adjustments. Okay. Thanks, Tristan, for adding your email. Oh, the program profile. Okay, so that's been improved upon. Access and living wage proviso, there was an update there. Okay, implementation not available until after session. Okay. All right. Legislative proposal updates. Okay, so we've got the increasing eligibility for families to subsidy. We've got increasing base rates for subsidies. We've got complying with the new CCDF requirements, and there's 5 things listed there. Let's see, align childcare subsidy payments with the private, yeah, that we talked about that. We've got an update on the ECAP entitlement and a little blurb there about the licensing complaint unit. As mentioned before, the rulemaking update was around the capacity waivers for family childcare providers. I believe the current capacity doesn't allow over 16. Jump in, Nicole, and correct me if I'm wrong there, but oh, there it is, no more than 16. And there was a lot of discussion, I remember last time, about the rules around the fire regulations. So there's the information there, and you can definitely go on and read about the update online. Does anybody have questions about agency updates? We've got a lot of agency folks here that can answer these questions if there are any. Okay, well, I'm gonna send it over to Katie and we'll just move on to our first topic of the day. Oh, right. Sorry, we did have the agency panel in December, and there was detailed answers on all of those questions in the December meeting minutes. So that is important to go in and look for in the email. All right, Katie.
Good morning. I'm fighting my voice this morning, so bear with me all, but good morning. We have a huge panel of licensing friends coming up to give us some of these updated licensing items going on up there. And so we have Debbie Groff, who is the Child Care Deputy Senior Admin, and then Jennifer Gomes, Michelle Sempilo, Ruben Reeves, and Nicole Rose. And we are all looking forward to this. I do know that for us providers. So whoever's starting, go ahead and you guys are ready to go.
Thank you very much, Katie. This is Debbie Groff, and I'm having some connectivity issues, but I will quickly show you that I really am here. But when I have my camera on, it slows everything down. And I need to remind myself to slow down because we have interpretation going on right now. So good reminder for me. Good morning, everyone. We are really happy to be here this morning and to be able to present on the Child Care Monitor Visit Survey. I have with me two of my colleagues that will introduce themselves as they come on into the presentation. But we'd like to ask that you hold your questions or put them into chat, and we will answer questions at the end of the presentation because we're really excited to kind of do a show and tell and be able to show you exactly how providers will access the survey in order to send it in to all of us. So with that, we'll move on to the next slide, and I believe Jennifer Gomes is up.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Gomes. I'm the Child Care Program Manager, working with Debbie and Michelle. We wanted to provide a brief history of the Child Care Monitor Visit Survey. So as many of you know, this was developed in response to providers' request for the opportunity to share their monitor visit and licensing experiences. The questions were developed and vetted with members of our provider communities, our SEIU 925 Provider Union, the DCYF Child Care Licensing Leadership and Quality Assurance Continuous Quality Improvement Teams. We refer to that as QACQI, as well as our DCYF Community Engagement Partners. We can go to the next slide, please. The survey was developed in the languages you see on the screen, including, in addition to English, Somali, Spanish, Russian, Tagalog, Mandarin, Ukrainian, Vietnamese, and others as upon request. The reason these languages were chosen were based on recommendations from our DCYF Language Access Program, as well as data pulled from a Child Care Aware report from 2022. Next slide, please. Some of the survey logistics. This survey is automatically emailed out to the providers once the licensor has completed the on-site monitor visit and sends the inspection report. Once the inspection report is sent out, the survey email is also sent out. The survey is anonymous. Michelle will be providing a demonstration a little bit later, showing you the functionality of the survey. But as far as it being anonymous, the email that is sent out does include site specific information. For example, for programs who operate with multiple sites. So that initial email does include site-specific information. However, once the provider logs in to complete the survey, that identifier or that site-specific information is removed. The survey emails are triggered once per monitor visit. There is a tip sheet available in the provider portal under the Help tab, which provides information and step-by-step instructions to help providers complete the survey. If providers have questions about the functionality of the survey, they can email the provider portal inbox you see on the screen or call the phone number you see on the screen. And I will also drop that information in the chat right now for everyone. And we can go ahead and move to the next slide, please. A little bit about the analytics and the data review. So survey data will be reviewed quarterly. This frequency may increase or decrease after the first year of collecting those analytics based on the data and information received. Our QA/CQI team will analyze the data and make recommendations and discuss all of that with our childcare leadership. The data will be utilized to drive practice improvements and train our licensing staff. Summarized results will be shared yearly. And this will create and result in feedback loops for ELAC and provider supports. And we can go, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Michelle to do her demo. We're not going to be showing these questions at this time. If we could turn off the slideshow. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I'll be sharing my screen, so let me get that up here. Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Sampilo, and I am the WA Compass product owner. So it's nice to be here. I'm going to be giving an overview of how to basically get into the provider portal and showing you where to locate that survey, how it comes in, what it looks like, just giving an overview of the entire functionality of it. So everyone can become familiar with it. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. I'm hoping that is good. I don't hear anyone screaming yet, so I'm gonna take that as a good sign. So as Jennifer mentioned, the survey is automatically sent out once the licensor completes the on-site visit and sends the inspection report. So when they send that email, you will automatically receive an email. It goes to the email address that we have associated with the account. And the email looks like this. I apologize for the scrolling. But it basically just talks about the survey. As Jennifer mentioned, it does have the account information, the account name, because we do have several providers that are associated with multiple locations, and you do need to know which location so that you can access that specific survey. So we had feedback from a provider to have this added. So we adjusted our survey to put this information in there to help providers locate the survey once they're logged into the provider portal. But this is the email, so it gives information, and it does have the 8 different languages. If you scroll down, there's multiple languages, but it's sent automatically. So once you get the email, it does have the link where you can click to log in to the provider portal, or you can access that provider portal by going onto Child Care Check. We have a link there. You can also get onto it from the DCYF website. You can search for Child Care Check on the search bar, or you can go to the services and go to the For Families section and go to Child Care Early Learning, and the link's here. So there's multiple ways to get into it, but once you're on the login page, you'll use your username and your password to log in. And I'm just going to take my password here. Oops. Get logged in here, and it'll log in, and it'll take you to this home page. So everyone's homepage should look similar. It'll have information about the specific facility that you are you're landing to. So the monitoring visit is what is triggering the survey to go out. That's what triggers it, but we'll show you the questions from the survey, but it is asking for information on visits over the last 12 months. So that's just the trigger to make sure that everyone gets a survey, since we're doing monitoring visits for every individual for the year that's licensed. When you first log in, you'll want to make sure that you select the correct provider. When I pulled up the email, it was for this provider survey account. So if you have multiple locations, you want to make sure that you click on this drop-down arrow next to the facility name and ensure that you're clicking on the correct site. Once you're on the correct site, you will click on this licensing tab, which this hopefully should be familiar for several of you, as this is where you'll go to find your inspection reports, print out, look at variance waiver information, things like that. So this is where you normally kind of go to for all of this licensing work. But once you're on this licensing tab, there's a couple of sub tabs here in this green ribbon, and there's a sub tab labeled as feedback survey. And this is where that survey is located. And you can click on that. And if there's a survey, you'll see when the inspection was, and there'll be a link for the actual survey. One thing I do want to call out is there is, for providers that may have additional language needs, we do have the option while you're on this screen that you can use Google Translate. Up here towards the top, there's this select language drop down, and you can use Google Translate to select other languages that we may not have options for. So it's using Google Translate, so it's not perfect, but it definitely fills the gap for other languages that we may not have. So feel free to utilize that if there's languages that we don't currently have. If there is any, and this goes for any other areas that you need to look at while you're in the provider portal, as well as for information on how to find or fill out this survey. If you go to this help tab, kind of up here towards the upper right corner, if you hover over it, you have 2 different options. There's this tip sheets option, and if you click on it, it pulls up several tip sheets that just walk through different processes within the system. And there will be one that's for updating the completing the licensing feedback survey. It's right here. This is not currently, I'm in our test environment, so it's in here. This is going to be released next week it'll be available on the 29th for everyone, but on the 29th, this will be available for everyone to access. And you can click on the different languages. We have all 8 languages available, and it'll just pull up information to be able to access and fill out this survey. So I'm going to go back to my licensing tab here so I can get back to the survey. I'm just going to click on this feedback survey, but feel free to use that help tab anytime that you are unsure of what, how to access anything or what to do. It has a lot of helpful information. And we always have our provider portal support contact information here, the inbox and the phone number that Jennifer posted in the chat. But what you want to do is you'll click on this provider survey link, and it will open up the survey. One thing that we have noticed is that when this survey opens up, that Google Translate option disappears. I will give you a little tip. We're going to work on fixing that. But what you can do is copy this URL. And actually, I just minimized that screen and I'm going back to my original screen and just paste it here. And when I do that, I can now use my Google web browser, and I can click into the settings and I can actually translate, use Google to translate if I wanted to into a different language. If one of the 8 languages that we have is not in a primary language or a language that, a provider needs. But when you're on this survey, it provides information. The survey takes just a couple of minutes to fill out. You can save it and come back later. You do have 60 days from the date of the email to complete the survey and submit it. After 60 days, if it hasn't been submitted, the survey disappears. So you want to make sure if you want to complete it within that 60 days and submit it. But you do have the option to pick one of those 8 languages that Jennifer had up on the screen: English, Mandarin, Russian, Somali, Spanish, Tagalog, Ukrainian, or Vietnamese. You select which language you prefer the survey to be in. And once you select it, you can click next. And the survey will actually be in that language. I'm going to keep it on English so that I can show you so I can understand what the questions are. But if you selected Spanish, all of the questions and the pickable answers would be in English. If you selected Tagalog, all of the questions and those pickable answers would be in Tagalog. So I'm going to click next. And it's going to pull up the available questions that you can fill out. And these are just, again, as Jennifer mentioned, they're questions that were, they went through a process to be decided and vetted what the questions were. So you'll go through the questions, read what the question says, and most of them are a drop down, so you can pick what your selection is based upon that drop down. So the first one is what's basically your license type, childcare, family home, school age, or outdoor nature based. And so you make a selection from that. And you just move along the line and answer each question. How long have you been licensed? Pick from the drop down. This section has answer these questions based on your most recent monitor visit. So you'd answer these questions based upon that visit. Was the purpose of that monitoring visit clearly explained by the licensor? And you can say yes, no, or I don't know. So you make a selection and just move through. Did the licensor identify themselves and show identification? You also have the option to select not applicable. If there were any items of non-compliance, were they clearly explained to you? Yes, no, or not applicable? Did the licensor offer technical assistance during the visit? And you just make a selection from the drop down. And again, if you select a language other than English, the questions and the answers will be in that selected language. You can mark which resources you're comfortable in accessing. This is a multiple pick list, so you can select as many or none. You also have the option to select other. And if there's one that's not listed here, you can type in what that is. So you do have the option to manually type in other there. You can rate on a scale the licensor's respectfulness towards your cultural practices. And there's a scale here. So you just rate how it was, whether it's poor, good, excellent, whatever the scale. Mark whether your language needs were met during the visit. If the licensor answered any questions about the WAC, the Washington Administrative Code, that you may have had during the visit. And you just make your selection. And we do have information here, a link to what the Washington Administrative Code and kind of a brief description what that is, just in case that's unclear. And then here's some questions thinking back through the duration of your licensing experience, describing a time where you were provided outstanding service or had a positive experience from a member of the licensing team, and just describing what happened. So you can feel free to type in information there. You do not have to type in anything if you do not want to. None of these questions are required. So you can leave questions blank if you wish. You do not have to answer if you do not want to. You can leave questions blank. So that is totally fine to do. We did not make any of these questions required to submit it. This question 12 is thinking over your last 12 months on your experiences, how you would describe your interactions with childcare licensing staff, and you'd rate that, you know, whether it was good, poor, anything there. And then we have the last question is you to type in any additional comments that you might have. And again, all of these questions are optional. You can fill in any that you want, all of them, some of them. You do have the option to save and come back later to complete the survey, because we know everyone is super busy. And again, you have 60 days to complete it. So you can save and come back later and complete it. Once you have filled this out and are ready to submit it, you can click next. And you'll have kind of a little thing here that says, you know, we appreciate your participation and feedback. There is a blurb here that says when you submit the survey, you'll have an opportunity to view and download a PDF copy. I do want to note that this will be your only opportunity to download the PDF of your answers. So if you do not take the opportunity to download that PDF of your answers after you submit it, we don't retain a copy of that PDF, so you won't be able to get it after the fact. So if you want to know what your answers are, I suggest downloading it at that time. And then once you submit, the survey disappears, so you won't be able to go back and see your answers. I will say those free form text fields that you can answer in, it's a large text limit, so you can type in a lot of information. It's very large. I want to say like 3,200 or 32,000 character limit. So it's very large. We try not to limit people. So once you are ready to submit, click submit. And it'll ask you to confirm just to make sure you're really sure. So click submit again. And then here's where you'll have the opportunity to view and download that PDF with your answers. So if you want to, feel free to view and download that PDF and save it, a copy for yourself. And here's kind of what it looks like. Again, will be your only opportunity to do so. So take advantage of it if you want to, but it'll show what you answered or didn't answer if you left anything blank, but it'll be for your own records and information. And once you're done, you can exit out of that. Oops, and my whole thing disappeared. So, but once you're done with that, sorry, my whole thing went away. Sorry, it's because I copied my URL. What it would do is it would take you back to the home screen. So I'm gonna go back here and I'll show you what it does when you submit the survey. So once you submitted the survey, if you go back in, your survey's going to be gone. So there won't be another survey until next year. It won't be there until the next year when a new survey is sent out. So, and then we'll get the information, and as Jennifer mentioned, that QA CQI team will take data. It does come to us anonymous, so we won't have the information as far as who submitted it, that sort of information. We'll just take basically the answers and use that to drive kind of, the driving practice and quality improvement, that kind of stuff. So it will be anonymous, even though you are logging in, selecting the location, and the email had facility information, but it'll be anonymous, reviewing the actual answers and things like that. So, and we have already had responses back. So we've had providers taking advantage of the survey already. So that's been exciting to see. So we're kind of excited to see it in action. So, but that's the overview of the survey. So hopefully that's helpful. And again, definitely use this help tab and reach out to the provider portal support inbox if you run into any issues. And again, that tip sheet will be available January 29th. It took us a little bit longer to get all the translations and get everything to get it posted. So
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. I mean, that's pretty in-depth, and going on Compass to try to find it looks pretty easy. We do have some questions in the chat box. I don't know if you saw it. You did answer quite a few of them, but there are questions about like the functionality and being able to continue the feedback on it to you guys. Is there a way that once providers, I'm assuming, start using it and they see something that could be possibly changed or made simpler, is there a way to give feedback for that?
So I would say, and Debbie, I don't know if there's any particular way that you want to have feedback come in, if there's suggestions for updates.
It's a really good question. And I'm wondering, because I don't think we've kind of thought this one through, but I'm wondering with that open dialogue box at the very end
Yeah.
of the survey, and the fact
End
that
of
it 32,000 character limit, which means you can go on for a very long time, if that wouldn't be a good place to put functionality concerns or ideas for future rollout of survey. They will be reading every one of those, and they will also be translating all narrative typed in, so that we will be able to learn from all of our providers who are typing in multiple languages. So I think, Katie, I think that might be where we want to steer people right now
Okay,
until we figure out if we need to do something different there.
okay. Yeah, I think that, well, 32,000 characters seems quite a lot, but sometimes I think providers will have more than that to say.
Sure,
But yes,
sure.
that's going to be that'll be a great spot to put in some opinions maybe on the survey. Also, they asked, can you share any info on the question vetting process and who participated? I know we've kind of gone over that, but and
Sure,
exactly
sure.
who participated.
Yep.
As we know, provider supports did not participate, but who else in the community engagement area was able to put their 2 cents in?
You bet. Appreciate that. And we sent the survey questions early on to Miss Patty at SEIU, who shared it with her counterparts. We also vetted it with Laura, and I'm apologizing because I cannot remember Laura's last name because it has changed since I knew Laura as Laura Taylor, but from Taylor Tots in Yakima. As a child care center provider, Laura took a look at the survey questions and offered feedback as well. Um, and I do understand, and I think Ruben does as well, that, you know, there was concern that we didn't vet this through provider supports or even ELAC as a group, but we wanted to get this out, and that's not an excuse, but it is a reality. We wanted to get the survey out. Folks asked for the survey, and we wanted to be responsive to that. So we did the best we could do. We vetted it with the folks that we thought could give us some feedback rather quickly. And we're going to run with this survey for a while. We need to stay consistent with our questions so that we can actually gather data, right? If we change questions now or during this process of maybe the next year, our data will be skewed. So we do want to roll this out for a while and take into consideration things that folks are coming up with as they're doing this survey for implementation in future surveys. But we really do want to roll this one out for a while. I also wanted to speak to the fact that, and this is captured in the PowerPoint presentation, and you'll have that for your saving, but we don't want this survey to circumvent our supervisory review process. So you always have the right and should utilize this right to request a supervisory review if you have an issue regarding an issue of noncompliance that was noted on your inspection report. So please complete the survey because we want to hear from you, but also know that we haven't lost those abilities to work within our supervisory review process, nor have we lost the ability to just have open communication with all you folks. So if you have concerns, and it's not at your monitor visit or after your monitor visit, please utilize the connections you have with your licensor, the licensing supervisor, area administrator, etc. So don't think that all those communication channels have been closed down because we have the survey. This survey is just in addition to the communication channels that we already have.
That's a great point. Thank you for pointing that out. I think that's there's many options now that have been brought to our attention here in the last 6 months. And some of the work that provider supports is doing with you guys. So I'm so happy to see the options that are coming to fruition with you guys and the different departments. There was a couple more questions we'll get to quickly. Can a survey be available for 90 days instead of the 60 days? I'm sure it's already kind of a cutoff time to change that, but maybe if somebody needed more time that they could put that in the box at the end of the survey as some feedback. Would that be correct?
That would be great, Katie. And I think, again, the systems have kind of been built around the survey and I hate to circumvent that at this time, but if folks feel that 90 days is more appropriate to their time frame of being a very busy childcare provider, please make those suggestions so that we can gather that information moving forward.
And then the character limit, you guys had responded, who receives the responses. You guys had talked about going to the board and talking about it with supervisors, and then bringing results to provider supports, which will be awesome. Let's see. This has been a conversation this is from Julie. So this idea that it was too time consuming to come to provider supports or ELEC is frustrating, as you were just talking about, Debbie. Yeah.
Yep, I hear you, Julie, and we can't go backwards, but I appreciate the comments. Moving forward, again, lessons learned on everything that we roll out, and this is a good lesson, right? That we need to maybe take that time at the beginning of these things. We did listen. I don't want to dismiss that. You asked, folks asked for something. We wanted to get it out to everybody as equitably as we could. But again, we didn't take the opportunity to bring it to ELAC or provider supports as a group. Noted.
Does anybody have any questions? No.
Yeah, Katie, I do. This is Lois. Good
Okay.
morning, Debbie. Good to hear your voice.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I do have a question on the vetting process. So you shared with Patty at SEIU, and I really respect Patty, of course, and another provider. So I just want to know, was it just shared with those two individuals, or did Patty share it out through SEIU to family providers to weigh in, or was it just simply those two people in your desire to get it out the door as soon as possible?
I do know that Miss Patty shared it with her colleagues. Now, I don't know from that point if they sent it out to providers for feedback. We would have to reach out to Miss Patty to ask. She gathered quite a bit of information and shared it back with us, but I don't know exactly who they reached out to.
Okay,
good
so
question.
I just want to point out, if that did occur, then that leads to a lack of opportunity for center providers. And I know you're going to say noted, and appreciate that. However, that does not take away the inequitable opportunity that may have been provided. And so if we're going to receive feedback, it should have, just to make sure that base was broader, or the center person you asked was someone who was connected with the larger group to get a little bit more feedback before sending you their responses. Even if they talked to a few more people, I think that would have been fair, as we, at least in our state, continue to work on equitable input and outcomes.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. Appreciate it.
I just wanted to add, I think that we, as educators, have been trying to voice that we want to be a part of it. I've also heard providers also wanting to be a part of things like this. And I think this is such a huge, huge, huge part that is important to have more than one, or a few. And then say it's because of time. If it's because of time, lack of time, or needing time, I think there's many of us that are more than likely to be able to provide input. I think I understand it's late, but moving forward, I do want it to be notated that there should be more involvement in decisions like this, because we don't have just one a few educators. We have a lot, and it like they said, it is not being equitable if that's how it was done. And I'm just sad to hear if it was just based off a decision of a couple, being that there's such a need for this, an outcry that we've been wanting to have these kind of surveys.
Yes, thank you, Veronica. Appreciate that feedback.
And I just
Right.
want to jump in real quick. I know that Ruben and Nicole are on a limited timeline because they have to jump off at 10. if you guys want to continue this part of the conversation, we could just come back to the community forums updates at a later time. But I just wanted to put that out there that if we want to get to that, we should transition to the next part of the conversation, or we can save that for later and continue this.
Yeah, let's move on to the child care forum update.
Yeah, Ruben available? Is he there?
I am here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So just with the survey, Lois and Veronica, thanks for your feedback on this. And I need to kind of look at, like, I actually think we reached out to more providers. So I reached out to my Becky in headquarters. She had someone from her QA/CQI team take the lead on this. And so just want to circle back with, I mean, the survey's out, and like Debbie said, we got to let it run its course and then maybe tweak it in a year or so. But I will circle back to see if there was other providers involved in providing feedback. So just wanted to close the loop on that. Just to update on the childcare forums, let's first talk about the 2024. As everyone is aware, we did about, I think, 8 in person and 1 virtual at the end of December. And so we are working right now to really collectively identify themes, both in licensing and early learning, that was captured across the state. And we will be sending out a report. We're hoping to have it out by the end of March, just to talk about those overarching kind of themes. And then what is the department doing? What is the agency doing? What is licensing division and early learning kind of actionable steps on each of those themes, which we started doing a little bit already. And there could be some things, I'll be honest with you guys, that we can't do because of, it could be funding, and Nicole will talk a little bit about that as well. So, but we want to follow up. I think that's important. I explained that in all the forums that I was at, the importance of follow up and some actionable steps. And so that is our plan to wrap up the 2024 child care forums. Now for the 2025. As you know, we want to continue these meetings, these regional meetings. And it is going to be led by our area administrators in licensing, along with early learning leadership. We still want to combine licensing division and early learning in 2025 to continue these forums. So we were planning them, we were trying to find venues, and then we have the travel ban from the governor's office. So as you know, our staff are unable to travel outside of direct client service related as a way to save on our budget. So we don't know when the travel ban will be lifted. But so we are kind of pivoting and seeing how that will impact our 2025 child care forum meetings. We're looking at some possible virtual ones that we can do in the meantime. So each area administrators are working with will work with their local coalitions and come up with a plan. But we are at pause right now for 2025 until the travel ban is lifted. Nicole, anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Ruben. Good morning, everyone. And I just want to thank everybody who came out and participated in the community childcare forums. I think it was a really valuable experience. I'll highlight from the early learning division side some of the themes that we saw, and then just I think want to level set a little bit with budget realities as we think about next steps here. So not surprising, childcare subsidy rates came up quite a bit around sort of the low subsidy rates. And we are at 2021 market rate survey at the 85th percentile. There's been lots of conversation around, how do we get to that true cost of quality care? And we are in a space where I will be transparent. I have seen bills that are suggesting that we revert back to the 75th percentile of the market rate survey. So we are in a budget environment that is not where we would all like it to be. And I want you all to know that the department, believes that we have more work to do here. But just know we're operating within those budget constraints. There were also some things that came up about TK and grants and funding around the application process for grants. There were also some things related to commerce that we can follow up with them on. And then, one thing that came up quite a bit was staff qualifications, and we are working through with licensing. What steps can we take now? There have also been some bills introduced around this to help us really work through our workforce challenges. And so as we put together this report, we will be having some conversation and putting in there sort of what we can do and what we can't do. Lois, before we hop off, one of the things you're asking is Secretary Sen planning to hold any virtual meetings? One of the things that we're working through as we're onboarding our new secretary is really just talking with her about sort of what are some of the groups that she should be meeting with, et cetera. I know Ruben and I are working through some of this, and my guess is that we both have ELAC and provider supports on our list of folks that Secretary Sen should be connecting with. And so more to come on that. So just wanted to share that with you all.
Yeah, I definitely have it on my list, Nicole, on groups that she can come to, and this one in ELAC were definitely on my top two.
So I apologize. Ruben and I are going to hop over to a meeting about legislative session. I just want to thank everybody again that showed up, whether it was virtual or in person, and just for the time and the feedback and the dialogue. It's greatly appreciated.
Great, thank you guys, and good luck at your next meeting. Thanks for being here today with all the updates, Nicole and Ruben. Any more questions for the licensing team? Don't see any hands up.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Are there any opportunities coming up where we could influence or provide feedback on an upcoming change? How would we, as providers, make ourselves known as a person that wants to be part of the feedback when things are being developed or changed or whatever? All right, who from DCYF is still here?
Did they all leave the building? Is Debbie still here, or is she off? Nope, she's off.
Okay.
They're all gone. So I guess we'll have to email that question. Okay, well, with that, then I guess.
Hi. I was like, I'm supposed to be here with early learning for staff qualifications, but I can answer that question. I would say if you want to get on any work groups or anything like that, I know that early learning, and I'm sorry, interpreter, I'll talk slower. I know that early learning is supposed to send out a survey in the newsletter And the questions start off about qualifications, but there is a spot where they provide an email address and maybe even a phone number. I have to take a peek at the survey. And it's like, if you want to be on a work group, give us your contact information. So basically you just share your contact information and they'll keep you in mind for any work groups and say, hey, this is what we have coming up. If you want to participate, say yes. And they'll plug you into a work group.
You've seen that on an email?
Yes. I feel like the email is, I don't know when the early learning newsletter is gonna come out, but I feel like they were gearing up yesterday for translation, so it must be gonna come out here probably in the next couple of days.
Okay. It's frustrating because anytime I hear about something being developed or possibility for feedback, I email folks directly and make it known, but
Christy and I worked with
Okay.
in the office together. That's what she asked for, kind of like what we did.
I agree because there is words that have gotten out of the whack, like other when
I need.
people are trying to get licensed or stuff. There's changes that are happening and we're not knowing. And then we go to licensors and they don't even have a clue sometimes of what we're trying to say, and we're having to go above, beyond, over and under hills to have them understand what is in there. So is there a place that we can go to
Really?
find out for us that want to participate on the work group?
Oh, it looks like Marlene might have found it
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you, Marlene.
and dropped it in the chat. Thank you, Marlene. I appreciate that.
Do we have to have the camera on the whole time?
so if you're here for the, Natasha, if you're here for the staff qualifications portion,
And I have never.
are your coworkers that are doing that here as well?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, maybe we should just move on then.
You have.
I just, when you asked the question and nobody chimed in, I just
I
didn't
appreciate that.
want it to go unanswered. So I was like, let me go ahead and step up here for you.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
absolutely.
Okay, well, we're gonna move on. We've got childcare area administrator, Natasha Reed. We've got workforce supports manager, Gretchen Starr Bruning, staff qualification coordinator, Susie Campbell, and they're gonna provide an update on staff qualifications, including upcoming legislative bills impacting qualifications. It says members will be invited to provide feedback on projects such as updates to the staff qualifications web pages and plans for the 2025 webinar series. So thank you for joining us and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gretchen Starr Brunig, and I am going to kick off our co-presenters today. Thank you, Natasha, for jumping in. I am the Workforce Supports Manager. I am the newest member of this team. I've been around for 90 days and delighted to be here with you today and engaging around staff qualifications communication. I'm going to kick it to Natasha to introduce herself formally.
Good morning. I am Natasha Reed, one of the area administrators in Region 4. I have been working for DCYF since it was Dell. I just entered year 11.
And Susie?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Susie Campbell. I am the staff qualifications coordinator. Started in April. I work really closely with licensing and our merit navigation team to support the job role qualifications, pathways, and communication about changes. And just historically, my experience is in Head Start and ECAP. And I've been in many roles. So I've been a teacher, a family advocate, center director, education inclusion manager, and just very much appreciate everybody here who's willing to have your voice at the table and help us to make things better. So thank you for having us.
Next slide, please. So just to share, this is our roadmap for today. We're gonna kick off by hearing directly from you about staff qualifications. We have a couple of questions to engage with you, and then we're going to pass to Susie and Natasha to talk about ideas that we have currently for engaging, including the survey that Natasha was just describing, where we'd like to get some feedback from you as to what questions are currently on there and what questions we might have missed. And then we have a few specific examples that Susie and Natasha are going to share where we get direct feedback from you right now. And then we will talk a little bit more about our future opportunities and next steps. So let's move on to the next slide. So our wondering for you today is what areas of staff qualifications you feel super knowledgeable about and what is confusing to you. So we would love to have you just raise your hand to share right now or write in the chat. Know that we are keeping track of what's in the chat, and while we have the time available to us today, we also want to be able to follow up in the future and respond to questions that we may not know the answers to today. So with that, I'm going to be quiet and see if somebody would love to share what was working for you about staff qualifications and what is confusing.
Okay, well, I have a question. Is there any discussion about expanding PACE so that, let's say you have a lead teacher that decides to do the community-based option, they go through childcare aware, they take the trainings, they complete the PACE for their role. And then a few years down the road, they want to apply to be a program supervisor or something that would require more. Is there a way that PACE can be built upon? Because right now it feels like PACE is good for assistant teachers and lead teachers, but if somebody's going to progress higher than that, PACE becomes completely irrelevant and they would have to start over.
I thank you so much, Julie, for bringing that forth. Yes, the dialogue is still continuing on that, and this is a perfect example of things to get involved in with real life stories around the importance of what you're talking about. Just to confirm, is articulation of PACE as credit for future college coursework towards being a director or program supervisor. Am I accurate in?
Yeah, however it would be approved to be built upon, it just,
Yeah,
so that it's not, a waste
right.
where
Yep.
the person ends up going, I wish I had taken a different route now that I have to get more qualifications.
We are very aware this is a concern, and it is on the list of things to be discussing and working on. Thank you for bringing that forward.
Okay, so it might be something that can be built upon someday?
It's a
I
possibility. Go ahead, Susie.
Currently it's part of the articulation agreement with the colleges. And so, I mean, never say never, but it would definitely be a conversation where the colleges would have to have they have to come together with that articulation agreement and see how it could move forward past the short certificate. But we're always working to try and find ways to help reduce barriers or to make things make more sense, especially as things have been put in place and we're moving forward, we're able to now kind of look back and say, oh, this might need to be thought through a little bit differently, or we might need to consider another pathway. So it's a conversation that can be had. It's just not currently part of the articulation agreement that's in place right now.
Okay. Now, Lois had a question that was related to that as well in the chat. She said, or PACE plus X number of years of experience as a lead teacher allows someone to fill the program's supervisor or director roles. So has that been something that you guys have discussed?
Susie, are you aware of that option on the table?
That hasn't come up before that I've heard of, but that's another good question to consider and to put on the list of things when we are looking at next steps and helping for qualifications, especially wanting to grow within our programs, wanting to promote people who are already in the workforce. So thank you for bringing that up.
I think one of the hardest things about the education requirements for program supervisor or director, whoever's going to fill that qualification, is that it used to be that that person had to have 45 credits of ECE or 30 credits of ECE plus 150 hours of STARS. And that was the entirety of the qualification. Now, not only do no STARS count towards those credits, now the credits are very specific in what they have to take, and it includes things like math and English, not just ECE. So it'd be nice if they would get back to the basics when it comes to requiring ECE rather than some of these classes that don't pertain to ECE.
And I think that that is like the state certificate requires the math and English, but the equivalent of 45 ECE credits does not require the math and English. So if somebody wanted to, and I know this doesn't answer all of the concerns or account for the credit hours, but the equivalents do, there are ways to work around that math and English and still meet the requirements. It's just looking through the equivalent options and making a different selection than having the official state certificate. But I also understand that doesn't recognize the experience option that a lot of our center directors, program supervisors, and assistant directors have.
Julie, these are great points. And thank you, Lois, for bringing forward. Are there any other things that people want to raise before we move on to the feedback opportunities?
Well, I do want to look at the chat. Eva said, is there any conversation on PACE availability? Currently, Child Care Action Council is giving this training summers only. Oh, 15 students only allowed.
I know that the availability has been on the topics for our contractor calls. And that's a question I'm going to need to take back to my colleagues to find out what options have been considered and what accessibility will look like in the future in each region.
Okay. And sorry, I did see that now I see that Susie had answered that as well in the chat. Lois said, Child Care Aware of Washington was working on an equivalent math option for ECE staff. Is that still happening?
These are super great questions.
Yeah, I think we'd have to talk to Child Care Aware and check with them on that one, on the math equivalent. I don't have the answer to that.
Okay, and then Eva asked about micro credentials being considered. Is that an option being considered?
That is in progress.
So did you
Very
guys?
good question, Janelle. Appreciate all of this. I'm not 100% sure on the timeline for that, but I can share that the leadership team will be discussing this within the next few weeks. So with your permission, I would love to see these questions and ideas still coming in the chat. And since we're going to move forward, but know this door is open. So I'm going to pass this to Natasha now. Thank you.
Hello again. So as in my title, it says I'm child care area administrator. So I work a lot in the field. I go out and do inspections by myself and with licensors. So I am always excited about the licensor provider partnership and what that looks like. So I was really curious about the resources that providers are accessing and what that licensor provider partnership looks like to you.
Is there a list of resources available from licensing? I'm not aware.
That would be a good option. So I would say the staff on the staff qualification page and our external website, there are a bunch. I'll probably, after my slide passes, go to the website and drop it in there, but Susie looks like she's looking, so she'll probably drop it in there. But there are a bunch of documents that Merit and the staff qualification team has developed that will kind of give you a guideline of what is your role? This is your path. So yes, there are resources that you can access, and if ever, you're in a visit and the licensor says like, oh, your lead teacher doesn't have a high school diploma, and they start rattling off options for qualifications in education. If you're like, okay, can you send me that in writing? They should be sending that in an email to you. If not in real time, then at least after the inspection, they can provide you with that information. Thanks, Susie.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump in for the next slide. So we want to talk about different methods and opportunities for providers to engage with DCYF and have a voice, a bigger voice at the table. Historically, we haven't, or in my role, we haven't been able to move forward in having those office hours or those meetings. And so we're working to fix this and to start doing a better job partnering with providers. So the first thing that we would like to talk about, if you want to go and put the next slide up, is the survey that we've been discussing. We wanted to send this survey out so that we could gather more information about where providers are going to get their answers for staff qualifications, trainings, and other opportunities. And so if you have a moment to look this over or want to come back later, we would appreciate any suggestions to questions that might be missing for us to get information. So things that you want to share with DCYF that maybe we need to consider for better communication, better pathways, better opportunities to partner with. And then we can go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about a work group that we would like to be launching, hopefully next month or the month after. So beginning hopefully in March, we'll be launching the staff qualifications work group, which will consist of providers, licensors, coaches, community partners, and other individuals who support the work of the early learning workforce. And the purpose of this work group is to bring together partners to advise DCYF on the development and implementation of clear, effective communication strategies regarding the process for meeting staff qualifications. The work group would collaborate to identify barriers, streamline messaging, and ensure that all stakeholders understand the requirements and procedures for staff qualification compliance. And then through this collaborative effort, the work group, we aim to enhance transparency, support informed decision-making, and foster a sense of shared commitment to maintaining high standards for staff qualifications. Currently, the plan will be to hold this work group on the third Thursday of each month from 1:30 to 2:30 until we can get enough members to vote on the best time and day. And then if you're interested in participating in this particular work group, there's an area on the survey that we'll be sending out where you can provide your contact information and let us know that you're interested. And then we'll be working to make sure that we have a diverse team of individuals meeting to do this work together. Next slide.
So can I just jump in quickly to add that we're envisioning that our licensing team that is already working together with Early Learning Division will be present with providers so that we can all collaboratively work together to co-design the communications. So we really encourage you, if you are available on a regular basis, to jump in. And one way of doing that is through a survey response where you give your contact information to the link that was provided earlier.
Okay, but some of us are not going to see a survey for another 12 months. So it'd be nice if there was another way to make it known that we're interested.
No,
Not
there
the
are two
licensing
surveys.
survey.
Sorry, we're not referring to the licensing survey, which was before. It's in the link here. It's specifically around staff qualifications communications.
Thank you.
All right, so we have been able to hear a lot of feedback from the childcare forums, and we've heard, among many other things, that our current web pages are difficult to navigate. There's too many options, and the options aren't explained clearly enough. So we've been working to review each web page and the documents that are attached. And in the next few months, we will be analyzing the existing data and gathering more feedback so that we can collaborate on making things more reader-friendly and usable. Next slide. So we always appreciate the feedback that we can use to make things better. We currently have a task force working together to update our web pages with focus on reducing the number of clicks to get information so that individuals can access information without needing to click on multiple links. And that includes combining some of the duplicative web pages and removing pages that are not necessary. We're also working to simplify the language for better understanding and ease of use, using more plain talk so that it's easily understood or easily translated. And then streamlining the landing pages and titles of topics and documents so that they match what they say. For example, there are some links on our web pages that reference equivalent options for your education, and it's written in a different language like the title in the web page is different than what the document title is. So we're working through those pieces and trying to make sure that everything is clear and matches what it says it's going to. So next slide. If you have suggestions for improving the professional development work page or web pages, this would be another opportunity to kind of just put things in the chat for us so that we can take that information and come back with to our work groups and also follow up with this with everyone here on what our next steps are. And give just a moment for that. I can see there's a lot of questions in the chat that I want to be able to answer, but I'm probably going to have to answer them afterwards. I apologize. All right.
Susie, do you
Did
want to
I'm go-
proceed?
Yeah, I can go on to the next slide. So another opportunity and way in which we're trying to engage and partner is through licensed staff qualification hours, office hours, and webinars. We've been meeting monthly with licensors since 2022, and through ongoing conversations with providers, licensors, and community partners, and then also data collection through our merit navigation team. And just to clarify, the merit navigation team are the individuals that all of the merit email goes to, and they sort through, identify who can best answer the questions that are coming through, or walk providers through their questions through phone calls or emails that we respond to. And they've collected a lot of data, letting us know where common concerns are coming at. So we've been offering the office hours with licensors, and we're going to start offering the office hours with coaches at the request of Child Care Aware of Washington beginning in March. And then we'll be doing webinars for primary contacts beginning at the end of February. And when I say primary contacts, I'm talking about center directors, center assistant directors, center program supervisors, and family home licensees. We'll be doing those webinars on a quarterly basis, and they will be offered in English, Spanish, and Somali. So they'll be offered in the evenings to try to accommodate better attendance, and they'll be offered, I believe, Monday or Tuesday is English, and the next day is Spanish. And then on Saturdays, there'll be a Somali webinar offered. Next slide. I'm going to let Natasha jump in from a licensing perspective on this one.
So I participate in the excuse me, in the monthly office hours as an observer. I love them. I actually recently told Susie, I also appreciate that sometimes she circles back to topics. The example was some of the health and safety trainings that the licensors get confused about. What is in childcare basics? What is extra training that needs to be taken? I appreciate that she circles back to that. I do my best to be there monthly. Sometimes meetings conflict, but you always have the presentation, and I know I can reach out. So I very much hope that providers can tap into those opportunities, and it's great that she's going to offer them in the evening. They're super helpful for me. And again, I've been doing this stuff for years, and I still have questions, and stuff still comes up where I'm like, I'm confused about this. So yeah, I think it's a really great opportunity. And again, I also just wanted to say, being on this other side of like interpreting the WAC, there are moments of confusion for us too. So we absolutely understand there are moments of confusion for providers, but we're in this together. And when we have questions, we will be emailing Merritt and Susie to get our questions answered.
Thank you, Natasha. I do appreciate doing office hours with the licensors, and I'm really excited to start doing the webinars with providers. The goal of the office hours is for whoever the audience is to let me know what topics are really coming up for you. So I have a spreadsheet for licensors, and they often bring up questions or concerns or send me an email, and I add that in so that we can follow up in an office hours. If you want to go to the next slide, I'm going to be doing office hours with the early achievers coaches. And currently, I'm going to start with the staff qualifications, just going over licensed staff qualifications and what kind of resources are available for coaches to use in supporting providers, our teachers, our staff, and then the education pathways for each job role. And I will be working with them to determine what works best for their day and time, knowing that that they're out in program a lot as well. Next slide. So webinars for primary contacts for center directors, assistant directors, program supervisors, and family home licensees. We'll be starting to do those on a quarterly basis because we're going to do them in the webinar format. So they'll take place in the evenings and on Saturdays. And then I don't know how many of you have maybe attended a Merit webinar, but the Merit Navigation team did 3 webinars earlier this year, and we're going to follow that same format. So there'll be opportunities to ask questions during the webinar, and we'll be answering those questions in the chat. They'll also be recorded, not live recorded, but recorded prior to the webinar being presented, so that if you're unable to attend one or you want to revisit it, that'll be available. And then I'm going to start the first webinar with staff qualifications in Merit. I do have someone with Imagine Institute that can go over the substitute pool. And
Susie?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna chime in. We can't hear the Spanish interpreters.
Oh.
So 1 second. Spanish interpreters, can you hear me? We can't hear you in the Spanish channel. Can you? Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you? Okay.
Are we okay?
Yes. All right. Yes. So, Susie will begin talking, and then you guys can jump in on the Spanish channel. Thank you.
Thanks, Marlene. So I'll start the first webinar at the end of February, going over the staff qualifications in Merit. And I do appreciate, again, anybody that wants to send me an email requesting specific topics so that I know what the big concerns are. And I can also, which I do pretty regularly, invite others from our professional development team to present as well. So if there's specific questions around training opportunities, we can reach out to the training team and have somebody join us for the webinar. Next slide. So if you have any suggestions that are on the tip of your tongue, if you could enter those into the chat today, that would be great as well. And I'll keep track of those for future topics. And then I'll go to the next slide. One of the other things that we want to share with everyone here is we've had a lot of requests by coaches and licensors to provide a simple one-page document with QR codes that someone could, for example, that's listed here, a licensed childcare center lead teacher, could look and see what their options are to completing their job role education. And we've got the 3 options. There's the higher education if they want to go through the college to get their initial certificate and then their short certificate. If they want to try to go through PACE, which is that community-based equivalent, or if they will have their 7 years of experience by August 1st, 2026. And then each of those QR codes will direct them to the web page that gives all of the information. The college one will direct them to the learning portal, which is a great area to just does drop-down menus if you want to take your classes online, if you want to take your classes near your area or in Spanish. There's different opportunities there. And so this is the first one that we've done, and our goal is to have the QR codes for every job role in the next few months, hopefully. And they will be available on the web page so that you can just link right to them. But they'll be an easy document for coaches and licensors to also, if they want to print out and bring with them, to help provide those additional resources. Next slide. And I will turn this over to Gretchen.
Sorry about that. Little sticky audio button there. I'm so grateful for all of these ideas that are coming forward in the chat and the questions. And these are great topics to be kicking off our Center Director webinars and future meetings. So really appreciate all the involvement today. So if you've not done so already, if you could provide your ideas, whoops, no, I have not switched to Spanish. Make sure. Marlene, did you see me switching to Spanish? I'm just going to double check my globe here. Okay, I'm just going to carry on. So the next steps, if you've not done so already, is to provide any additional questions that you might like to see in the survey link that we have around staff qualifications, to participate in a work group, to have ideas for the webinars that Susie has been discussing. We will take the data that we gather in this survey and be able to report back to all of you, so that you also know where staff are going with their questions around staff qualifications, and can use the information for your own work. There will be other opportunities to help co-design the web pages that DCYF puts forward, and handouts and other resources such as the QR code that Susie just shared. And we are really excited to share this next stage of the work with you. If you could move on to the next slide, please. We did want to make sure that you are aware of this bill, which we are analyzing. There is a hearing today, a public hearing this afternoon at 1:30, with testimony that you could provide. The bill would extend the timeline to comply with the staffing qualifications or use experience as your equivalent. The deadline would be extended to August 1st of 2028. In addition, it would extend the experience equivalency to childcare directors, assistant directors, and program supervisors, and create the staff qualifications advisory group with a final report on December 1st. Yes, Julie.
Yeah, hi. Is DCYF testifying today in favor or against this bill?
I'm going to defer to Marlene or others. I personally will not be there.
I'm not sure if DCYF is taking an official stance on this during the public hearing. But I can, Julie, I can reach out to our GA team and see if we are taking any public sides on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erin and Julie. Any other questions before we move on to the next slide? Okay, next slide, please. So now's your time for any further questions that you might have of us. Yes, Lois.
Hi, not a question, just a statement that I appreciate the team coming for this type of feedback. I also appreciate the simple, I don't know and I'm not sure, but I'll find the answer. That is so welcome. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And the rest of the team too, and Natasha Braden jumping in to answer the question about the survey. Yeah, just thankful.
Thank you, Lois. Do appreciate that. It is something I've been saying a lot of since I've been here such a short time, but yeah, so we really do aim to make this more transparent, and we're so grateful for this opportunity to be with you today. Any other questions?
I had a question I had put in here with a link. Diana mentioned that it's for a high school education, but everywhere I've read, if I've misread, says it's for anyone that doesn't have a degree on hand for the hiring education affidavit request. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yes,
that.
I got the question in the chat. And again, I would like to follow up with you directly after this
Okay.
meeting. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you all very, very much. Appreciate this. I'm saving the chat. We will be following up.
Well, I mean, if you guys are done, that puts us really ahead.
Super, super ahead. Should we just do our break now, I guess, a half an hour early? Yeah, okay. Well, let's take our 15-minute break for the morning and reconvene, I guess, 10:58, 11 o'clock, come back and we'll move on.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll just give it a minute while everyone comes back. Oh, thanks for sharing that bill, Aaron. Well, we're going to move into our final topic. We've got Marlene. She's DCYF's Community Engagement Manager, and she's going to lead a feedback gathering activity to inform the development of ELAC's 2025 FSKA report. So based on how many providers are here, I think we'll figure out how many breakout rooms if we're doing that. Anyway, you want to go ahead, Marlene?
Yeah, thank you, Julie. Yes, for the next portion, this is really going to be focused on gathering feedback for the FSKA report that ELAC has to write and submit to the legislature every year. So if there's DCYF staff that are still lingering here, you're welcome to log off. This is really to seek feedback from childcare providers. But before we go into the activity and before I provide an overview of what we're doing and how we're going to do this activity, I also have my colleague with me. Oh wait, you know what? We were supposed to present at 11:30 and we're a little early, and Courtney's supposed to provide some remarks. Courtney Parker from the Government Affairs team. She's not here, is she? Or I am her really quick. Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, Katie and I didn't realize we had a co-presenter or we wouldn't have moved on.
Yeah, no, sorry. This was all last minute, last week, and it wasn't on the agenda. So I apologize for that. Okay, well, while I wait to hear back, I'm gonna just quickly share in the chat a couple links. So what we're gonna do is look at the FSKA RCW, and we're gonna go into breakout rooms and have childcare providers really look at the FSKA RCW and the sections of RCW to provide us feedback or recommendations on the different sections of it. So I'm putting 2 links in the chat just so you can take a look at it right now. So this is the English and this one's the Spanish. And so what we're gonna do is, well, okay, I'm gonna just explain the activity and I'll see if Courtney can join us early. I IM'd her, but for this activity, we're gonna go into breakout rooms, and it depends on how many childcare providers there are here. I do see several DCYF staff, so I think what would make more sense, and I'm just like talking out loud to gather feedback from our facilitators too, probably do 2 breakout rooms, 1 English and 1 Spanish. And the English room will be childcare providers, the Spanish room will be childcare providers. And what we'll do is maybe do 3 rounds, 20 minutes each, and really prioritize the top 3 topics in the Google document that I put in the chat. So if you open up the Google document, on the left side, you'll see that we've split up the RCW into different topics. The top 3 are really
Arlene,
sections
can
of
you pull it up and show it on your screen?
Oh yeah, let me do that. Good thinking. I have to get used to Zoom since we're always on Teams. Okay. You should be able to see. So I'm just showing the English for now, but what we're looking at is really this. This is what we're looking at, split up into different sections. So this is the Fair Start for Kids Act account, the spending goals and strategies. There's a lot of different sections within the RCW that calls out different things like providing childcare resource and referral services. And what ELAC has to do is write a report to the legislature based on this RCW. It's a report, a recommendations report based on recommendations they want to give to the legislature for this RCW. So what we've done is split up the RCW into different sections so they're just more digestible. And we already did this activity with ELAC, but what we're doing here is revising that original activity and really focusing on the areas for childcare providers. So you'll see here there's 3 topics. Topic number 1 focuses on childcare provider support. So these are the actual sections of the RCW. So they're very government language. And here are just some questions to consider as you think about what you would like the legislature to know around subsidy rates, compensation, healthcare. These will help us draft recommendations based from the provider voice. So what we're gonna do is split into breakout rooms. Like I said, it'll be English and Spanish comprised of childcare providers. And we'll do, we have enough time to do 3 rounds of 20 minutes, and we will focus on these 3 topics. So round 1 will be topic number 1. For 20 minutes in your rooms, you'll be discussing these areas. And just write as much as you can. This document is editable, so if someone from your breakout room wants to take initiative and start writing notes, or if you want one of us there to write notes down, write comments down, we're welcome. We're happy to go in there. I'm planning to be in the Spanish room to just help out and write some stuff in the Spanish room. So if the English room wants somebody, let me know and hopefully one of us can jump in. And then after 20 minutes, we're gonna probably, I don't know, regroup, but honestly go back or just like make a mention like 20 more minutes and then go into topic number 2 for 20 more minutes. Yeah. And some of these are shortened, which is great, but we really want to hear from childcare providers. These are the top 3 topics that really call out childcare providers, and the rest are very much larger, high level areas of the RCW, but by all means, we've put all of it here. If you are in your room and you're snooping around through the early learning youth and development supports page and something jumps out at you, please bring it up in your groups. These are just the 3 areas that really call out childcare providers, but yeah, you can go into jump around into different rooms and then write your comments down. So hopefully it made sense. I'm gonna stop share and let me see if Courtney has responded. Also, like I said, we're really wanting to hear from childcare providers. So if you're DCYF staff and you're here, you're welcome to stay. But the breakout rooms will really, for the remainder of the hour, we're really going to be working on the recommendations, seeking that feedback from providers, and doing that like breakout room activity. So DCYF staff, if you want to stay here, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you are free to go. So let me see if there's any.
Marlene, can you
Well,
go
first,
back
is there
to the document and show people how to add a comment? This group has used what is it, Menti with sticky notes quite often. And I assume you don't want people writing right in the dialogue of your document, but there is a way to, in the document, there's a little plus sign that would pop up if you highlight a section, and that's where you can add a comment.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Julie. So, yeah, I mean, this is editable. So if you have a link, anyone can go in here and write comments, and you're welcome to just write on it. What I asked ELAC is to just change the color of your comments. So if you are here and you're reading information about childcare subsidies, subsidies for families working to resolve homelessness, and you have a comment about that, or you have a family that's experiencing homelessness and you have a strategy or ideas how the legislature can help with this, just, anyone can go into it and start writing. I just ask that you just try to highlight it and change the color so we know that these are comments. I mean, we should be able to tell anyways, but really that's all I asked for. And I think there's ways you can leave comments too, but go ahead, let's do direct comments on here. Write out your feedback directly on the document. But like I said, I'll be in the Spanish room and I can definitely help take notes in the Spanish room. And if we and if someone in the English room wants a DCYF staff there to take notes, we can jump in there too. Otherwise, we can just join the rooms and everybody that has access to this can just go ahead and make direct comments on here. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm just gonna delete that.
Yeah, it works best if one person in the room is kind of the assigned note taker. So if that works for you guys, that's what I would recommend. But as Marlene said, if you need any help, if you'd like any assistance, I'd be happy to pop in there if anything comes up.
Yes, so let's see, Courtney, I have not heard. Oh wait. Okay, she can be in here in 5. So you want to take another quick break? We have enough time. What Courtney was going to do is provide like an overview of the RCW and just things to think about as we go into these breakout rooms. Because a lot of the times people ask, what's the status of this? Or what's the statistic around this? What's the data piece? And Courtney just provided a really great overview about, you know, you are experts from where you sit and what you're reading on the screen. We want to know what it is that you have feedback on. What recommendations would you provide someone that's able to change the law around these efforts? So
why don't we go ahead and
Yeah.
go into a breakout room, and then after the first 20 minutes, she can do her portion, and then we can go back in.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. All right, yeah, so breakout rooms are open. If you are an English speaker, go into English, and if you're a Spanish speaker, go into the Spanish room. And you'll see them open, and then you just click join, that blue button. Okay, so I think everyone should be back by now, and hopefully that went okay. I know it took us a couple minutes to kind of get everybody in the breakout rooms and whatnot, but we are ahead of time, so that's really great. That time is on our side and we're not running out of time. So I actually have my colleague here, Courtney, from the government affairs team, who's going to provide a framework for our activity. I know we already went into it, but hopefully this will spark more as we continue to go and do our activity. Courtney?
Yeah, hey everyone. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm Courtney. I'm a policy advisor with the government affairs team at DCYF, and I cover early learning and education. So I'm happy to be here today and hopefully simplify the recommendation crafting process just a little bit. Just because what you guys are doing is super, super important for the FSKA recommendation report. And to do that, we really just need to kind of get back to the foundations and guiding framework for development. And to do that, we have to get back to those guiding statutes and the law that really gives the scope and the intent for this report. So thank you. Perfect. Jessica is on it. The first thing is really, like I said, the intent of the Fair Start for Kids Act, right? It's those legislative actions to support childcare providers, families, and communities through expanded childcare accessibility and affordability. And so with the recommendations and requests, it's looking at those legislative actions and how are they meeting needs in your community and how are they not meeting the needs of your community. And to really tackle that, we have to get to the RCWs that outline the scope for creating recommendations and creating requests. And the first one is that one RCW 43.216.075 and then 2B, and that defines the report audience. and that is the legislature and the governor. And it's really saying, okay, these recommendations are for the legislature and the governor. And so when you're coming up with them, it is saying, what can the legislature do and what can the governor do, and what's working and what's not. So it's making asks of the legislature and the governor. But really the meat and potatoes for the recommendation report and coming up with a framework for how to develop the recommendations is RCW 43.216.772. And I think, as we all know, at this point, that is a large statute, quite literally A to Z and beyond, but it's super important and it outlines the spending goals and strategies, but more clearly those implementation strategies of FSKA. And it is a broad scope. And so it's really important to prioritize recommendations within this RCW. And so what I'm really here today to kind of just talk about is, what does it look like to prioritize those recommendations and prioritize them for the legislature and the governor. So can we go to the next slide? So again, it's really just simplifying it down to 3 basic steps for this framework, so that we can tackle this RCW and that those recommendations can be actionable. And it's starting with the audience and the scope. So who are your recommendations for? Who are your requests of? It's the legislature and the governor. And then it's sticking to RCW 43.216.772, and then even narrowing it down. Because like I said, we all know that's a huge statute. And so it's identifying those priorities within that RCW based off of those observed needs in your community. Like, what are ongoing or reoccurring needs that you are seeing that are not being met and that the legislature and the governor can take action on? Like, from year to year, what are you seeing that needs action? And so what then comes next is crafting those actionable solutions to unmet needs. And you all bring such a valuable, practical, expert position that only you can provide as providers from the unique position that you sit in. And so it's saying, here's this unmet need, and here's this solution that I can identify, and then here's the recommendation that we can craft based off of that. So it's really just moving through those steps as things can get overwhelming with this large statute, and bringing in all the different perspectives that we have. So that's what I have for you today. And if you have any questions right now, I'm happy to take them. Not hearing any, Marlene. I'm not seeing anything in the chat as well.
All right, well, if everybody's ready, we can go to round 2 of the activity.
Yeah, and then the last slide also has my contact information as well. So if anything pops up, or it might be attached somewhere else as well, but if anything pops up, feel free to reach out anytime as well. Awesome. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Courtney. All right, so hopefully we got some good discussions in the first round. Topic number 1, which is childcare provider support. I see the English room does have some comments on there from Julie, so thank you for that. What we're gonna do is go into round number 2, and what we're gonna look into now is topic number 2. A lot of these topics align with each other. They have, they're all having to do with the early learning field. So I welcome everybody to just open up the documents and really look at all the topics and kind of review the RCW and the sections of the RCW, because something might spark that you're experiencing in your, where you sit, like in your center or in your home. And so even if you're in your room discussing whatever, but you want to leave a recommendation for a different area of the document, please just go in there and write it. Great. So yes, we're gonna go into rooms again. It'll be English and Spanish. The rooms will open up. We'll do another 20 minutes, and now everybody's moving on to topic number 2. Unless you want to jump around, like I said, this is very flexible. And yeah, I will go in the Spanish room and help write questions or write comments down. And then we'll regroup again in 20 minutes. And then we'll do our last round, another 20 minutes. And then we should be able to end early. We'll see. I don't want to promise anything. All right, so let's open up the breakout rooms and have people choose their rooms. All right, we're back in the room, and in our Spanish channel, Jacqueline got cut off. So Jacqueline, save your thought, because we're gonna go into breakout rooms one more time, and we're gonna look at the third tab, which is topic number 3, systemic improvements and innovations. So if you have feedback on grants and loans and business incentives, shared services, a hub for resources. Those are the topics we're going to look at in the next session. So if we're ready, let's do that. And then after the next round, we'll all come back and kind of do some share outs. All right, let's open up the breakout rooms one more time. All right, I'm muted. Yeah, I'm curious how it all went. I know we were just in our room and we were really talking about grants, and someone got caught. Ugh, I can't go back between English and Spanish. Bear with me. Someone got cut off, and I'm curious. We do have some time to go. Maybe we could do 5 more minutes if you want, or we can just regroup and just have some comments here. Okay, I'm seeing some head nods. Well, thank you everyone for doing that activity with us. It's really going to help us with our FSK recommendations report as we continue to write it with ELAC. And then I'll talk about next steps in a second. Yolanda, do you have a question?
Oh, that's it's me that I was talking about the equipment for children with disabilities. Like, for example, those equipments that are expensive. So if there is a child that comes to my center, I'm not prepared for that. So it will be kind of nice to get something, that we can have it already when it comes. And then I says, okay, now I have a space for somebody, but how that I gonna offer when I don't have the equipment? And it's a lot of need. There is a lot of need of that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, really quickly, I'm going to say this in Spanish. Si quieres escuchar en español, tienes que ver el globo, tienes que hacer clic en el globo y tienes que escoger tu lenguaje en español para poder para escuchar en español. Tenemos intérpretes. Entonces, si estás en tu teléfono abajo en la barra, debes de ver un globo que dice interpretation, interpretación en inglés y pon español. Just reminding everybody that you need to join a language channel if you want to hear this meeting in English and in Spanish. Everyone needs to join a language channel, even if you speak English. All right. Hopefully everybody was able to join. But I just want to thank everybody. What we're going to do is, I know that we had great conversations in there and maybe people got cut off, like I said. We were talking about grants and loans. And I'm curious if anybody wants to share any other things that came up for you in your rooms around the FSK sections of the RCW. Or we can always what we're going to do is actually share the links to these 2 documents, and people can continue to access them even after this meeting. If something comes up and you want to write your comments or your feedback, we're going to be just gathering them, and we're going to be writing that report soon, just like the draft. We're going to write the recommendations down so we can provide them to our DCYF teams by this spring, so it aligns with our legislative process. So just so you know, but we can keep it up for like a week or so. Julie?
I just wanted to share that I took a lot of notes in the document for everyone else because I'm not somebody that has opened an additional site, but the problems around expansion sound really overwhelming. Licensing is not able to be helpful when it comes to navigating all of the different rules that a provider has to contend with, because they're dealing with city and county and fire marshal, and not knowing that you know, licensing, there might be a rule around facilities that says you have to have X number of sinks per X number of children, and in a new building that's being remodeled for the purposes of childcare, a provider might think, okay, that's something that can be done. You know, I'll hire a plumber, not knowing that the plumber is then going to say, actually, that's not possible. I can't add this here. Or it's not possible because there's not enough like gravity in this area to go to the drain, or there's not enough water coming into this building to meet the requirement of X number of sinks per it's a lot to navigate, and a provider can quickly get in over their head paying rent for a building that is ultimately not going to work out because there's nobody to help them navigate the fact that there's so many different agencies with so many different regulations. So that's a huge kind of gap that I don't know who could even fill that, but that was a big topic for us.
I just want to point out that like I just built a before and after school center last year, and knowing all the WACs and knowing that you have 1 child to 30 toilets for a school age program, had plenty of square foot, was told by our licensor we could have 82 kids in there. When we came down to get occupancy from the city inspector came in and then started treating us as an elementary school and wanted additional sinks and additional toilets. And we said, no, we're going by WAC. We've always gone by WAC. We're not elementary school. And we fought and fought for months, sitting there paying our rent every month. And finally I said, okay, I need to open. So what will you let us have occupancy for? And we had done 2 toilets, 2 bathrooms, 2 additional sinks on the outside. And he goes, well, I'll give you 30, which was half of what we built that space for. So still at this moment, we tried to appeal, but that inspector, he will not allow us to have the occupancy or the licensed amount that we were told by licensing with WACs. And he doesn't care. He's like, nope, you guys need a drinking fountain, you need this, you need that. You're considered at an elementary school. So it's like you get like somebody like me that we've built 4 different centers. we know the WACs, we know the codes, and then you get an inspector that comes in at the last second and cut our occupancy by half for what we built that for. And we still can't get up to 60, and that's what we wanted. We're still sitting at only 30 because of the city that we're in. So it's like you get to the end of this, and even somebody who knows the WACs and the codes, and you get one inspector that, you know, gets a hair up his booty and says, nope, this is what you have to do. And then you're crushed. Your dreams are crushed, your budget's crushed, you know. So with like what Julie said, there needs to be somebody that bridges that gap, whether it's DCYF, whether it's an outside consulting firm of some sort. These providers are being set up for failure to some degree because they don't know all the codes that come around with the city, the county, fire marshal, state fire marshal. They all can say something different right at the end. And then you're sitting there crying.
Well, and you're not talking about a building that wasn't there. It was an existing building that's been a business for many years, different varieties of businesses. So it's bizarre, but there's also rules in the WAC that around facilities that seem excessive and best practice rather than really necessary for some areas. I see you got your hand up, Nicole.
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to note here is one, I want to acknowledge the challenges in navigation. Two, also I want to acknowledge I'm not licensing, but wanted to share some work that we're doing as we think about facilities, as we think about sort of increased access or reaching ECAP entitlement. And one of the things that we're hoping to do is try and look at some of those things. Where are there conflicting zoning or regulations or some of those pieces? And then think about sort of what are the supports needed for providers to navigate that, right? Because this is kind of like pre-licensing, if you will, right? It's like, do I even know if this building will work for me? So I'm wondering if next time, Marlene, it's beneficial if we come and talk about some of the facilities work. And what we're trying to accomplish there. I also want to acknowledge that DCYF doesn't, you know, have oversight or authority over some of those other things that you're talking about. But is there a way for us to sort of catalog that and who's responsible for that and where the issues and barriers are? So just wanted to offer that as you all were talking.
Yeah, thanks for that.
I know we were talking about the grant, startup grants for topic number 1, I believe it was. And for a provider to receive that grant, it's quite a process. And once you receive that grant, if you don't own the building, the landlord has to be a huge part of you being able to receive that grant. And it's really hard. I mean, I received an ELF grant, which was amazing, but you have to go through the Department of Archaeology, you have to go through 5 local tribes, you have to do a lot of work, and then you have to get insurance before you even get any money. So I've been paying for insurance for this grant that I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get now, just with things changing. But, and then you have to have the landlord do a securitization process, which then they go to the title of the building, they go to, you know, the assets of the building, and that scares landlords. We're just trying to get a grant so we can build daycare. And now we have to have all of the tribe involved, archaeology involved. You know, you have to get all this new insurance before you can even get money. And then you have to ask the landlord to be like, yeah, okay, here's this, but you have to go through this process that pulls title, that pulls your assets. I mean, it's a lot of work for those grant recipients to go through. And that's going to scare off a lot of people that should deserve to get a grant, but are like, nope, that's not going to happen. My landlord's not going to sign off on that. My landlord doesn't want to be involved. He just wants my rent and that's it. But I mean, the grant is great, but it's a lot of work. So making those grants, possibly working with less requirements so providers can actually just start building a daycare.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. Oh, Nicole?
I was just gonna say, and I think some of that goes to having to be shovel ready versus what are all of the things again. And those grants are through Commerce, and so I think we just have to note that. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Marlene.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your comments. A lot of these comments and feedback that come up are barriers, and this is a great chance to give your feedback and have it directly tied to the recommendations for the FSKA spending goals. So when we do a follow-up email, we're gonna follow up with everybody and we're gonna include the 2 links to the documents. So, I mean, I'm looking at the English document. I don't see comments around the ELF grant. So I want to encourage everybody, when you get that email, go back into the document and write your comments down. Even if like the RCW or this is too much, you can write your scenarios down. Like, tell us a story. What are you experiencing? And we'll try to take your comments and feedback and see if it fits into the sections of RCW. But yeah, so what we're gonna do is, like I said, all of this feedback is gonna end up if it's within scope, it'll end up in the recommendations report for FSK recommendations report through ELAC. So we're still waiting and compiling responses from both ELAC and obviously now from provider supports. So we're gonna follow up with both of these links, and I encourage you to go back and write your feedback down. Tell us your story. If you go back and you're like, all right, well, this is what I experienced in the grant, and you can't find that section because you don't know which topic it was under, just go on there and write. It's editable, so you're able to do that or leave a comment, because I see people did also leave comments on here. But yeah, that's it for this activity, and I will pass it over to Julie or Katie. I'm not sure who's doing the closing. Thank you.
That would be Katie. Thank you. And thanks for chiming in, Nicole.
Yeah, there's a lot in those pages, Marlene, and we didn't comment on that ELF grant stuff, but I can go back in and I will definitely notate that and what I've been through in the story. So yeah, well, what a day. We are ending a little early, which is nice, and it's a little sunny out where I'm at, so cold but sunny. But reminder, if you can really take the time to go and take the reflection survey, again, that helps with our future meetings. It helps give us some feedback, what presenters you liked, what topics you like, what you thought was missing. It really helps DCYF and then us as the provider supports team to create these meetings so they're meaningful and you get some information and you learn and you're able to advocate. So our next meeting is scheduled for March 19th, which is so crazy to say March 2025. We're almost through the first month. But yeah, thank you guys for coming today. I think today was a great day. I think we learned a lot. I think there's a lot of feedback that's going to be coming around, positive and negative. This is what we're here for, to bring it to the table. So thank you guys so much. Have a great day.